Welcome to the Money Made Human podcast. It celebrates at its heart the work of credit unions and their vital role in enriching our lives and communities. Brought to you by First Class Credit Union, each episode features insightful discussions revealing the meaningful impact that can be made through economic collaboration. Mostly, it's a collection of compassionate conversations about navigating life and the individual journeys we take. Welcome to Money Made Human, a podcast by First Class Credit Union, and we are delighted today to be joined by Thomas Hawkins, the editor of the Sunday Post. Yes! Thank you so much for being with us.
You're welcome.
So many questions to ask you and about the Sunday Post, because it's a kind of cultural, iconic newspaper, and really want to explore a bit about news within the world just now as well, if that's okay. So, Thomas, tell us a bit about yourself. That's not a Scottish accent.
No, absolutely.
Where did you grow up?
So I'm from Belfast. Very much still a Belfast boy. I came over here for university, studied in Scotland, went back home. But funnily enough, it's a strange journey because I grew up in Belfast. Always loved Scotland. I don't know why. I don't know. I think there was something in me. Even as a 13-year-old, I bought
a Celtic connection.
I bought a Scotland football shirt as a 13-year-old.
No way.
Yeah, and I was the only kid in Belfast with a Scotland football kit.
What was driving that?
I don't know. I have no idea. I probably just like the colours. It had a little bit of tartan going on.
Yeah.
So I had that, and my brothers used to rip me. I have three brothers. Used to absolutely destroy me for wearing my football kit, Scottish football, and a full tracksuit. I bought a Scotland tracksuit for some reason.
I love it.
I know. So yeah, and then I went to university, came back home. Bizarrely enough, I've ended up in a newspaper, the Sunday Post, that my granny bought in Belfast because it was a big seller in Belfast back in the 1950s and right through to the 80s and 90s.
Yep.
And we still print it in Belfast. So I think it was almost fate they ended up back in Scotland at the Sunday Post. Yeah.
And what made you want to go to university in Scotland? Was that more of that feeling?
This is slightly embarrassing because when I applied for university, I literally opened the UCAS books. Me and my friends from school opened the UCAS book and were like, poof, dropped their finger on just a random course. Well, it was like management. So we'd all apply for this course in Glasgow University course, and I think a couple of us got offers, but I was the only one that ended up going. So I arrived in Scotland on my own.
To the University of Glasgow?
Yeah, but we did a course bizarrely through Ur. It was a Glasgow University course. So I was dotting up and down to Glasgow.
Oh
so I ended up in the middle of nowhere, really, on my own.
And now we've adopted you as a Scot?
Yes, and then when I was in university and you went through that course, I think then it was just ingrained in me. I was always going to come back. I did go home, and then I met a girl from Scotland.
A local girl?
Yeah.
Love it.
So then we came back.
We love a love story.
Yeah.
Come back to that.
Yeah.
Tell me about growing up in Belfast. Did you say four brothers?
How long have you got? I grew up in Belfast. I mean, a child of the Troubles, really.
Yeah.
So I do occasionally, when I'm chatting to my friends over here, tell them little snippets about what it was like because it was pretty unusual. Every day at school, on the way to school, we had an army security checkpoint that we had to pass through. So we drove out of the house, drove down the road, and there was a line of cars, and there was British Army checking all the cars underneath for bombs. There was a bomb at the bottom of my road. Growing up, army patrols coming through my street, people getting shot and killed. It was pretty grim. Actually, it's very unusual growing up.
It's hard to believe that in our lifetime that happened.
It is, even as someone who grew up in it. Now I look back on it with that little bit of distance and think that was so odd. And I think everyone...
Do you become accustomed to it?
You do. You know what? You develop this sixth sense for danger.
Oh, do you?
You become, it's a form of PTSD, really. You look at for trouble. You can sniff out trouble like a shark can sniff out blood. I'll walk through the street and there'll be a bag lying in a bus station and I'm like, back up, step back. And my girlfriend at the time when we were living in Belfast, she was like, "What are you doing?" My wife now. She's like, "Why are you so paranoid about things that are lying about unaccounted for?" It's just inbuilt. So probably to this day, I don't really like going into big crowded spaces because of that fear of.
It's kind of trauma, isn't
It
it?
absolutely is. My family, they might listen to this, but my family, there's PTSD runs right through it
Is that
because
right?
you're afraid of things. They're just very cautious about certain things and doing talking to certain people. Yeah, it becomes a cultural norm where you're very guarded about certain things and you're very cautious about where you go and what you do. So yeah, it's very unusual. But then at the same time, it's just exactly like the rest of Ireland and across the UK. You just we've got working class people. We've got houses that are exactly the same, look the same, streets that look the same. But there's this sort of other world
Yeah.
where everything's just normal and you go to the same schools, you drive the same cars, and then there's also all this stuff about shooting and bombing and terror.
It's so surreal in a way.
It is surreal.
We proudly serve credit union members in Northern Ireland through Royal Mail and other organisations. What surprised me the most about visiting Belfast for the first time was seeing those gates that still close, I think, at the end of each day.
Yeah.
I found that very confronting in a way.
Yeah.
And I wonder, what's that like to live in what was a divided community?
Well, what it's like as a guy growing up, so I'm a Catholic growing up in a very Republican area, you don't really see the other side.
Sure.
You live in this segregated community. There's two communities living side by side, doing exactly the same thing, separated, genetically by 0%, 0.00001%. So you're the same people. If you go back far enough, we're all probably related, and you're living side by side doing the same things, and it's very odd. So I used to go to the gym, the bottom of the Falls Road, and they have this beautiful, lovely, fancy gym, and across the road, across those gates you're talking about, is another beautiful leisure centre, exactly the same on the Shankill Road, paid for by the taxpayer. So you've two massive, expensive things running side by side, and neither of them are probably full. So you have oddities like that. Mm-hmm. It's a very surreal experience, like you say. And I think what benefited me massively was I went to America when I was 10 on an exchange trip. They took kids from Belfast, and we all went to America for the summer on our own without parents, which now that I have kids, I think that's mental.
Why was that allowed?
Well, and this is my personality. So the forms came around when we were in P6 or P5, something like that. And he was like, who wants to go to America? And I was like, yeah, I want to go. And I brought it to my mom, and she says, absolutely not. You're not going to America on your own for 6 weeks, no chance.
Uh-huh.
I forged her signature.
No.
And I gave it to the school.
Oh my, what age were you?
I must have been 9.
No.
And I signed that form, put it off, and then I got chosen. And I told Mum I've been chosen. And she's like, you can't have been chosen because I hadn't signed the form. I had signed the form. So anyway, it ended up an amazing experience because what happened was we went to America, we lived with a family, and at the weekends we would join up with other Belfast kids from the other side. And we realised I have more in common with you than I do with the people who maybe I'm still. And it was really, I really changed my outlook and it was a fantastic experience.
I love that so much. Just going back to your mum, did you say you had three brothers?
Yeah.
4 boys in the house?
Yeah.
They would have been worried about you guys?
Yeah. Do you know what? Yeah. About when we were away?
No, I mean just
my mum and
growing
dad.
up in the Troubles.
Absolutely, yeah.
They must have been hugely worried.
Yeah.
What did they instill in you in terms of values?
Everything basically, but I know my dad was very cautious. He was much more of a kind of worrier about safety and security. Making sure don't go here. And what was great, it was very family orientated. I have a big close family, but then I've got 63 first cousins, which is insane. So, but we've all very close family, tight knit unit, and that sort of family element, I think builds a feeling that you're all there to help each other.
Yeah.
So my dad was very much safety first, but for example, if you're going on a night out in Belfast, just doesn't matter where you are, what time of night, phone me, and I'll come and get you.
Love it.
And I think that instills something in you that what comes first is your family and your friends.
Yeah.
And I think people. I think very like everywhere in Scotland, and I think that's why I've got that affinity. It's a very working class sort of mentality. It's like, look, we look after each other.
Yeah.
If I've got £1 and you need £1, here you go.
You can have it.
You take that and just sort yourself out, because we don't need to be rich and famous, but as long as we're all okay, I think those values are very strong in our family. So, yeah.
And Belfast now, what an awesome city it
Yeah,
is,
yeah,
isn't it? And
yeah,
vibrancy and culture. And
yeah.
do you get back there much?
Yeah, I try to get it back a lot, and I'm always telling all my Scottish friends, you need to come to Belfast for a night out, because growing up there, despite all that craziness I talked about earlier, what a great place to grow up. So much fun, you know. Maybe that was because of that sort of trauma. What happened is people from all the areas would go into the city centre in Belfast, and then when you're in the city centre, you're not Catholic, you're not Protestant, you're just from Belfast, and so you would go out and you would party in the city centre,
Yep.
and you would just meet the most amazing people, and it'd be so much fun. So yeah, great place to go out, and I always recommend my friends come over because it's a great city.
Oh, it's what a beautiful city it
Yeah.
is. I wonder, just briefly going back to your parents,
Yeah.
was there strands of things that they taught you that informed your choices at university or future career?
Definitely, you know, I think just that what you're saying about the values, all, those values just help inform everything really. But I said actually when I was just got the editor's job at the Sunday Post, one of the things that, so my dad always went to work. So my dad, we've got working class background, but we also have that entrepreneurial streak. So my dad and my uncle started a greengrocers in Belfast,
Oh my
which then
goodness.
turned into a supermarket.
No.
So they had a supermarket in Belfast and it became two supermarkets. So there was that entrepreneurial side, and then they also started a boxing club, which now has, you know, has Olympic medalists came through it, world title fighters, and the Holy Trinity Boxing Club. So
Wow.
yeah, my dad will be delighted I give that a shout out.
Oh my goodness.
So
Love
yes, so
that.
got that entrepreneurial streak as well, and I think what that helps you do is go, you know, you can be community minded and out for your friends while also being ambitious and looking to achieve.
You can do both.
And my dad was very strong with, don't like hide your light under a bushel, and make sure you know, if you're allowed to shine, you know, shine, because it lets. Actually, I remember my mum pasting that. I think it's attributed to Nelson Mandela, but it might not be him. My mum was very much. She would get things out of the newspaper, little thoughts or little things that she found interesting, cut them out and put them on the fridge.
I love it.
And one of them was, don't be afraid to shine. By you shining, it allows other people to shine.
Yeah.
They see you and go, do you know what? If they're doing that, why I can do that. And I love that idea. You know,
Yeah.
you know, you don't have to be big and boastful, but if you're good at something, just say you're good at something and do, and you know, showcase that so other people can be allowed to showcase their skills.
I mean, you've just illustrated beautifully a love story with parents and children and,
Yeah.
and a community.
Yeah.
What are your parents' names?
Thomas.
Thomas?
Yes, Thomas Hawkins and Geraldine.
Ah.
My mum's a Ray, which must have some Scottish. I mean, my dad's family goes back to Scotland as well, to Paisley.
I wonder if that's where your affinity comes from.
There must be something in there. You know, it all seeps in, doesn't it?
Oh.
Yeah.
And you end up coming to the University of Glasgow.
Yeah.
What happens then? Did you want to get into journalism?
So I went back home. So it was management I was doing originally. I went back home, and what actually happened was I applied for a job in a hotel, and they said, right, here's your. I got the job. It was like assistant manager at a hotel, in the centre of Belfast, and they said, right, this is what you're going to be doing. You're going to be working till midnight, and later some nights you're going to work weekends. All these responsibilities, like, yeah, okay, I'll do all that, and the pay is £11,000. And I thought, that's terrible. This is 2000, 2001. And I thought, that's terrible wages.
Yeah.
For all that work, I'll be working late nights. I thought, I don't fancy that at all. So I went back and I studied an MBQ level 4, like a degree level journalism course
Okay.
in Belfast, which then led to a job in newspapers in Belfast. So I worked in the Irish News, which my dad had segued into journalism as well. Bizarrely, we were both studying at the same time at one point, in Belfast.
Oh, amazing.
Yeah, so started working in Belfast, the Irish News, and then I went to the Belfast Telegraph.
And
then I
what
came
were
up
you
here.
doing in that? Stories?
So I think that's helped me. This is what's helped me is I've had a career where I started off in sport,
Sure.
so all things sport, and then I moved into digital journalism. I'm trying to get the timeline right, but it was at one point it was in digital journalism. We had an iPad edition of the Belfast Telegraph, so I was leading that, and then I came over here. I was working in the business desk at one point in the Herald, the Sunday Herald, just production desk. I've worked all over, So I've been in all of different departments.
Does that give you a really good grounding, though?
It does. It really does. I mean, all the wordsy stuff seeps in by osmosis, and then you've got all the productiony side where you understand deadlines, you understand costs and
The
budgets,
business side of
the
it.
business side of it,
Yep.
and then you understand the importance of sport, especially in a country like Scotland where everyone's mad for sport,
Yep.
just like in Ireland. So yeah, it does. It helps. It helps that, and yeah, and so I've been around at the right times, and with all careers, you're in the right place at the right time when you take these steps up. But I think having that grounding definitely helped as well.
Is it easier to write about something you love?
Yeah, definitely,
If
absolutely.
you have a passion for it?
Do you know? I think when all of our writers will say this, when you write a lot, it's a bit like breathing. You
It
can
just
write. Happens. The best thing is just to get one of our reporters, Russell Blackstock's great, veteran writer. He just says, if you need to write something, just sit down and write it. Your fingers will do the work before your brain's even kicked
naturally.
in. Yeah, yeah.
And
you almost have to switch off.
You then found your way to becoming the editor of the Sunday Post.
Yeah.
Which for any of our members listening, it's an iconic Sunday newspaper.
Yeah.
It features 2 cartoon strips.
Yeah.
Called Oor Willie
Yeah.
and the Bruins, iconic Scottish stories. But it goes back, how old is the Sunday Post?
19, I'm going to get this wrong, but I think it's 1914. It started off as a Saturday Post.
So it's over 100 years old?
Yeah, because it started off as the Post.
Okay.
And the idea of the Post was to inform people of what was happening in the war, in the First World War. So basically there's, a huge desire to get more information back from the front lines. And then at some point it became the Sunday Post. They wanted even more news. So it transformed into the Sunday Post. And yeah, so it's been around since, I think it's 1914, is the very first edition. And in 1930, so we're in the 90th anniversary of the Oor Willie and the Bruins, which you mentioned. So 90 years ago, Dudley D. Hawkins, the artist, and R.D. Lowe was the editor at the time, came up with those characters. They just sketched them out on little napkins at lunch and little notebooks, and they came up with these ideas, and they have been around ever since. They were loved instantly.
And one's the story of a little Scottish boy,
Yeah.
and one's the story of a Scottish family
Yeah.
with lots of different characters within it.
Yeah.
But they've been part of Scottish tradition now.
Absolutely.
For you're saying 90 years?
90 years, and everyone you speak to, you talk about working on the Sunday Post, the first thing they'll say is the Bruins and Oor Willie. And I mean, it's cultural shorthand for Scotland. It's like, Iron Brew and Tunnocks tea cakes. It's just in that bracket.
It's part of it, part
And
of life.
do you know, if all editors will have sections in their paper where it's like sacrosanct, you can't touch that. If we do anything with the Bruins and Oor Willie, even readers will write in and say, I don't really like that drawing this week. It doesn't look like Oor Willie. That's not the Oor Willie I know. So they get very, very passionate about it, but they absolutely love it. We just had a 90th anniversary supplement, and the amount of emails, letters, phone calls we had about it, it was incredible. People still love it.
Thomas, I'm even thinking here of the nostalgia of it.
Yeah.
I remember getting up on a Sunday morning, we'd
Yeah.
get the Sunday Post, my mum would put that piece of the paper on the
fun
kitchen
section.
table.
Yeah.
I'd have French toast and I'd be reading
Yeah.
what Oor Willie was doing.
Well, my first job was my first thing to do as editor. So June last year, I was like, I'm bringing back the fun section, because we had a puzzles and comics section, but I wanted to recreate exactly what you just described. You take your newspapers out, and we know the pressures newspapers on there, but still I wanted, if your grandparents are buying it, your parents are buying it, you take
could
out the
have
fun
that.
section, you give it to the kids.
Yep.
And that was the first thing I did, so we've recreated that old style feel. You still get all the puzzles that we have on all those classic comics, but you can pull it
love
out
it.
and give it to the kids.
And is that your first editorial position, your first opportunity to be the editor?
Yeah, so I was a assistant editor for the Sunday Post, and I mean, the two jobs are very similar, because when the editor's away, you're doing the same job. So massive crossover. Really, it's just the same job, only with a slightly different title. But yeah, there's more to it now as editor. You've got marketing and advertising and board meetings and all that.
I just wondered if you felt the weight of responsibility of that role, given it's a historic paper. Do you feel like a custodian of that?
Absolutely, absolutely. That history and maintaining and looking after those comics, especially. I think they're such an important brand. But so the answer is yes, I do. But also because I've had such a long, I've been in journalism for 24 years, so it feels
Wow.
like forever, and it becomes just
Aging
something
well.
you do. So it's a long time. So the pressure is there, absolutely it is, but it also, I'm confident that I can handle it because
Yep.
I've been around, I've seen it. I guess I've seen showcasing of good editors, and I've seen the bad as well. So I kind of think I know what not to do.
Yep.
Yeah.
And you've really tried to, I guess, move that forward in terms of a modern agenda as well.
Yeah.
And just this year, something that connected us, one of your front covers was about the prevention of violence against women and girls. I think your chief reporter, Marion Scott, had put a piece together, and we just found it so moving and meaningful and got in touch with you about it. But I wondered if you could explain why issues like that are important to a newspaper.
Well, I'll talk about myself personally. From probably all that stuff we talked about, our family values, one of the things I thought when I got into journalism was like, I want to make a difference. And when you're on the lower echelons of journalism, it's hard to feel like you're making a difference. So when I became full editor, one of the things what made me feel great was like, I can actually make a difference, and you can see it every single day in every story of the paper. So when Marion came to me and said, look, I've got these latest figures, and it's something like 200 women have been killed by men in the last 5 years, I think the data was, it really struck me, and I thought, we need to do something about this. Sadly, we as journalists deal with this stuff every week, and we've seen it a time and again, and you do become slightly desensitized to it. But when she put these numbers together, I thought, that is appalling. And one of the things I want to do was make a difference. It might sound flippant, but I want to make misogyny and sexism socially unacceptable, just in the same way that you can't light up a cigarette in a restaurant. People would say, by the way, you can't do that. The same way that...
But it's just a norm.
It's just a norm. So if someone makes a misogynistic joke or they say something slightly sexist, you say, hold on a second, you can't say that. So that was the genesis of that was the sort of kernel of my beliefs. Marion brings this story to me, and as soon as she told me it, I thought, I know exactly what I'm going to do. Because I've got 20 odd years of journalism experience, I thought, I know what would make an impact. It's getting every single one of those women, as many as we can, and putting their pictures on the front page. Now, that was in my immediate thought. So when Marion starts putting the story together and we start doing the production side of it and trying to find all those pictures, what I didn't expect was when I read the story, see it all put together, we do it, and then read each one of their stories, and it really hit me like a sledgehammer, because I thought, these are mothers, sisters, grandparents, and even when I'm reading and I know the whole story, I'm reading it going, this woman's no longer here. And we're reading someone about, she's 40 and she's no longer alive because of the actions of her partner most of the time. Or
someone that's supposed to love her.
Exactly that. And you're like, someone who's meant to look after and be the rock in their life has ended their life. And it just really hit me. So that was the whole thought process behind it. And just like you, we had a huge amount of reaction to it, lots of letters, lots of phone calls. People just thought, this is appalling. And hopefully that was the point of it, make a change.
Oh, it was. I find it moving talking about it here. But it did make an impact, and we're so grateful to the Sunday Post. You came along to our Money Made Human Awards, and you presented an award to Scottish Women's Aid, who are in this territory every day trying to help survivors. And it was such a moving tribute. But I guess we're hopeful that we don't leave it there. We don't leave the story there, and we perhaps do more work on that together and with other parties as we go forward. And is that the real impact of a newspaper?
Absolutely. I think that's the key of, journalism is so important. And you talked at the very start about world events. Without newspapers, everything's now social media. It comes through social media, and there's so much misinformation out there. The strength of a newspaper is that everything that comes through a newspaper now, people won't, and my friends, wind me up about this. They're like, well, a newspaper isn't the beacon of truth. But And a newspaper goes through multiple layers of checking. It goes from the reporter to the desk head to the editor, back down to the sub-editors, revised subs, and back to the editor eventually. So you've got multiple layers of people saying, hold on, that's not right. Whereas social media and blogs and people who are willfully trying to mislead us can just be one voice. But to your point is about making that change and what happens next. One of the things that struck me, and I didn't know this at the time when we published that story, was that we have 200 women who've been killed in domestic abuse type of scenarios. But we've probably got an equal amount of women who die by suicide on the back of domestic abuse. And we just had that case recently in Dundee where Lee Milne had basically driven his wife to suicide. So it's almost equal numbers. So for 500 women who have died by homicide, probably have equal or roughly the same amount who die by suicide.
Because for those women, life becomes unlivable in the situation and they can't see a way out.
Absolutely.
It's heartbreaking.
It's terrifying. You know, those numbers they're awful, they're horrifying, but it's happening every single day. And we report on it every single day. And I think that was the power in bringing it all together and say, look, I know we keep reporting on this every day, but hold on a second, people, wake up and look at the numbers. If you pull them together and look at those people and those faces, this is an epidemic, and we need to do something about it.
And it's so powerful that you're using that influence to have an impact and make a difference. What are your other hopes for the Sunday Post as you go forward?
You know, just in the same way that happens, we've got an amazing reporting team, writing team who are constantly, they've each got their little passions, and that's the beauty of a newspaper as well. You've got all this broad range of skilled people who've all got passions that they want to make a difference on. And for me as an editor, I just think I am the vehicle.
Are you the conductor?
Absolutely. And I just say, do you know what? You're really passionate about this, and I think it's a good idea. Let's go and do it. So everything from revitalising our high streets, we've got a big campaign coming that's going to be shared with the Courier and the P&J, to these matters to infrastructure, our health, NHS, schools. You know, there's so many things that we want to help fix. And it can be overwhelming at times because you think, how can you fix all this stuff? But if we can...
But you're trying.
Yeah, and we can make a foothold in every single one and then let people, you know, push that forward as well. That's the idea.
What more can we do to support traditional newspapers? How do we help you? Is it buying the hard copy newspaper? Is it following you on social media? Is it both?
All of those things,
all
really.
Of the things.
I mean, and the thing is, nobody wants to be preached to and say you need to buy a newspaper. But I think one of the biggest difficulties is the sort of genie's out of the bottle where people expect, and I do as well, free journalism. But we're seeing now what happens when what comes home to roost is that free journalism ends up with everyone we've got blogs that aren't really fact checked. We've got some great bloggers doing great things. We also have lots of misinformation, and we have bad actors out there who want to mislead us. Purposefully misleading us.
Yeah.
You know, we've got bots from Russia, China, you know, I'm sure the Americans and the UK are doing it as well, but we've got people out there willfully misleading us, and people with bad intentions. So I think subscribing to
keep fighting.
Keep fighting, and you know, the best thing you can do is subscribe to a newspaper, buy a copy of a newspaper, because at the end of the day, if we don't have those institutions fighting the fight, because we're all just people just like everyone else, and we look at the issues out there and we think that needs to be fixed. If you don't have those, then corruption goes off the scale. You know, just it's a horrible, bleak, dystopian future without newspapers and journalists.
I guess it's the truth tellers of society. We really need that influence.
Yeah, absolutely, and crucially, they're backed by a team of people who aren't just saying yes, that's fine. They're challenging each story that goes through a newspaper gets challenged from every direction before it gets into print. Now, we won't always get it right, but we'll at least have the idea of, like, before it goes in print, we're saying, well, what are the flaws of that story? And what's the other side of that story that you're not telling us? And so we do inspect it where, you know, that's the failure of maybe social media.
I wanted to ask you globally, I think we've all seen in the news recently where we can have leaders, world leaders, challenging members of the press in derogatory fashion just because they're bringing truth to power. And I wondered, Firstly, what do you think about that? Is there a weakness there? But also, does that illustrate the importance of keep telling the truth
Yeah, do you
and
know,
to
it's
be resilient in that?
one of the things about working in a newspaper for so long, you realise that the truth is subjective almost. Outside of that's black and that's white, trying to tell an objective truth or writing a story, because it becomes very complicated very quickly, in a true way is extremely difficult. So my truth might be different to your truth. And so, I guess it comes back to your fundamental values, right? So what do you set as a value for your paper, and you jump from that basis. But to your point about the world leaders sort of challenging those outlets, I understand it, because you have, just like you have biased actors in social media and blogs, etc. You do also have newspapers who are set out to be party political, if you like. So you can see how that develops, and the world has become more polarized, where those traditional sort of centers of Labour and the Conservatives, if you're talking about political parties, are no longer the powerhouses they were.
Yeah.
And you have very divisive political parties. So I understand where it comes from, but it is dangerous,
Yeah.
and it makes people, even friends of mine, who will challenge me and say newspapers are full of lies, which is not the case. The BBC, people believe the BBC is full of lies. It's not the case, and I think that there's lots of conspiracy theories out there about mainstream media, but mainstream media, although it does get things wrong, is much more robust at trying to get to an subjective truth or an objective truth than maybe just one person on their own.
So by and large, there's lots of checks and balances
Exactly.
before you publish.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
we must keep fighting for our truth
Yeah,
tellers.
yeah. I mean, it becomes very complicated, because I know I could tell someone that mainstream media is really good, and they will point to countless examples where it failed. That is true, but the alternative to that,
but the majority.
yeah, absolutely, and the alternative to that is you have a very dystopian world where it's almost like dictatorial, where you have someone saying this is the truth, and you have almost like messiah-like figures dictating to people, and I think that's really dangerous.
Especially if they go unchallenged.
Exactly.
I just wondered, just going back to your parents and thinking about that powerful story that you ran and led with about the prevention of violence to women and girls, what would your parents think about that in terms of looking at it through your lens? Would they be proud of you?
Absolutely. That, I think you said it, but I have a very loving relationship with all my family and my parents, particularly. They are very proud of everything, and they're all proud of all of my brothers, what we've all achieved. But, just as a little story, I spoke to my mum recently about it, and she said that she was sitting at home one night in Belfast. My dad would go out to the pub, as men did back in the day.
Sure.
And so she got a phone call from like a creep basically on the phone saying, I'm going to come to your house.
Terrifying.
And I've got your husband. I've kidnapped him. And this is before mobile phones. So she's in the house with three young kids at the time.
And in the
terrified.
background with the troubles as well.
All that stuff. And so she's acutely aware of that type of
Fear.
Horrible fear, misogynistic, sexist. The guy, nothing ever came to it. And there was someone arrested in the weeks after that on the way to someone else. So sort of prank caller, if you like, but with
how
like
dreadful.
Sexual undertones, So she is acutely aware of that issue. I think all women are, because they grow up in a world where you've unfortunately got horrible, misogynistic and sexist people out there. So yeah, she's really proud, and she realises that there's work to be done there. So yeah.
And I guess we'll be proud of your influence over that.
Yeah. I would say I hope so, but I know so because my dad, tells me all the time. So
does
it's really
he?
nice. Yeah, he does.
Good.
Yeah, he proudly shows off my work to anyone who
This
listens.
is my boy.
Yeah.
I love that. And in the next few months, as we head out 2026, is there anything that you're hopeful about? Anything that you're thinking this will be something really important for the Sunday Post?
I've got so many ideas. I'm trying to think of one off the top of my head. We've got lots of projects planned, and we've got lots. The next one is, like I said about a little bit earlier, saving our high streets. The high streets are in a tough position right now, and it goes back to that. It's a bit like the online debate. Everything's online now for shopping and stuff, and the high streets are being forgotten. And so you go down to most high streets. I'm up in Larbert, and so when I go into Falkirk, and you've got bookies, vape shops, barbers, and those kind of cash converter type shops, and it feels like the heart has been ripped out of them.
Yeah.
So that's we've got a big campaign on trying to put the heart back into our communities.
And perhaps that's something credit unions could help with as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
As part of a community.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, Thomas, we've got some quick questions to finish.
Yeah.
Now, our team have written these. We do these at the end of every podcast. So it's a quick fire round. And I don't know if some of them will be work related and some will be life.
Okay.
But I think some great questions.
Mm-hmm.
This is a brilliant first question.
Okay.
What is the most inspiring story you've ever reported on?
Inspiring story. Do you know what immediately I'll just come with the thing that comes straight into my mind. So our past editor, one before, Jim Wilson, powerhouse of media and journalism, he and Marion was involved in it as well. So you'll speak to Marion, could give you the whole story about it. But Emma Caldwell, sex worker, she was murdered outside Glasgow, and the police investigated it, and they focused on a bunch of Turkish guys that they thought were bang on for this murder. It turned out that the murderer was right in front of them. They'd interviewed him, but he was never investigated fully. So Jim Wilson made it his life's mission to get this guy back in front of a judge, because he did stories first in the Sunday Mail and then the Sunday Post that said this guy needs to be looked at again. Something like 8 or 9 years passed before that guy was brought back into court, and it turns out, yes, shocker. So this, just for background, Ian Packer had admitted taking Emma Caldwell and other sex workers to this very remote
isolated spot.
And he's like, oh yeah, I used to come here, and it just so happened that's where Emma Caldwell was dumped. Her body was left, murdered and dumped in that exact isolated spot. But the police, for some reason, didn't investigate that. Jim Wilson held the police feet to the fire for many, many years until they went, okay, let's investigate him. Turns out he actually did do it and was charged, arrested, and is now in jail where he should be. So that, as far as newspapers goes, it's an inspirational thing, because he just didn't let go of the truth until that guy was behind bars.
It's that influence and impact, isn't it?
Absolutely. And that's what newspapers can do, really.
And what that's brought to, I guess, Emma's family.
Absolutely.
The peacefulness that might bring.
Yeah.
Are you an early morning reporter or a last minute night owl?
You know, I used to be last minute night owl, absolutely all day long. Stay up late. That was just me, and get up late. And then I had kids, and now I'm up every morning, bright and early. And maybe my wife might disagree with that, but I always get up in the morning. So I have appreciated mornings now.
Get it done quickly.
My wife's a total morning person. She's always up 6 o'clock in the morning. She's awake, and I'm like, can you please go back to bed? But yeah, very much morning now.
What stories do you think don't get enough attention in Scotland?
Stories don't get enough attention. Good question. It's hard to know. I live and breathe newspapers, so I kind of see it all. Get enough attention. Maybe this is maybe a slightly boring answer, but stuff like people who can't get their money back from big organisations, and that sort of daily frustration of dealing with big corporate bodies who then outsource their work to a call centre somewhere. I find that we used to have a great column called The Raw Deal, and it was inundated with people saying, I can't get my money back for these flights, or I can't get through to the council. Yeah. That sort of like daily frustration.
Like justice.
I think we need more of that. They're really time consuming as a journalist to produce.
Get involved in.
So that probably, I wish there was more of that in our newspaper, which, with the economy and with how newspapers are, it's difficult to dedicate the resource that it needs for that type of thing.
It's a great thought, though. Yeah. It's frustrating for people.
Yeah.
What's been a defining moment of your journalism career so far?
What was great was working during the independence referendum. And so I worked with the Sunday Post, which then came out in support of independence. And it was fantastic to see how that worked and the machination of a newspaper. The groundswell of independent support, and how that we end up doubling our sales overnight, really, which doesn't happen in newspapers. and it certainly doesn't happen anymore. So that was really informative. Richard Walker was the editor, and this mercurial genius of an editor, and he had spotted something really early on, that there was a lot of people so pro and against independence, and he said it's not about that. People need an independent supporting newspaper. So it was really interesting to be part of that.
And to see the impact that had on growth.
Yeah.
2 last questions then. What are you reading, watching or listening to right now?
I read everything, and one of my, if anyone can take this away and pass it on to their kids, is get your kids reading, and it doesn't matter what it is. I am reading a book called The Shetland Bus, which is about the Second World War operation where they shipped people, resistance fighters, over to Norway, Nazi-occupied Norway, and resistance fighters back out. So that's what I'm reading right now. But I read all the time, just everything and everything. Everything and anything. I love reading. Yeah.
Listening to music?
I am listening to football podcasts at the minute.
Okay.
And Money Made Human, which I just listened to Paul Sweetie, which was very good.
Thank you.
Paul Sweetie, and we deal with Paul a lot, and I've never actually spoken to him, but I made a point of, after listening, I thought I'm going to reach out to him because he sounded like
He's
a
an
thoroughly
interesting guy.
Nice guy.
And social activism, so
Yeah,
you're a peer.
Exactly.
You're a peer.
Yeah.
Last question, what's your best life advice?
Best life advice, probably a bit like that. Get everyone reading, because I think the more we can be informed about stuff. So you read a book and you think, well, it's just for fun, and it's, it can be chick lit, it can be a true crime, or it can be like murder detective stuff. It all helps your understanding, and I think the more people are informed, because I go out, play football, and I play with people, and I think maybe you need to be a bit more informed about what's happening in the world.
Yep,
and I think that comes from reading, because they'll say stuff about immigration, and I think you have no idea of the truth. There's no point even arguing with sometimes, so get yourself reading, whatever it is, read everything and anything.
Read everything.
Yeah.
Well, listen, Thomas, it was a pleasure to speak with you today. We're so grateful to have you. For our members, go look at the Sunday Post.
Please do, yes.
Scottish iconic newspaper.
Yep.
And thank you so much for being with us, Thomas Hawkins. Thank you. Thanks for listening to the Money Made Human podcast. We're grateful to spend time with you and hope you enjoyed it. If you want to join a credit union, choose us. With love, until the next time, First Class Credit Union.